Hello and welcome to the live stream. Hopefully this time around you can hear me. Today what I wanted to do was just do a bit of live testing of the plugin and show you guys all of the little updates that I've made. I was actually painting a video, I was actually working on a video out in the garage, but it started raining this morning, so I thought I'd come in and do something else. I was actually doing a really simple like 2-layer stencil and keeping it really basic, doing it like a little bit of a budget sort of painting. And I even cut out the stencil this week by hand, so that'll be something for you guys to look forward to. But in today's little live stream, let's go through all the little updates in the plugin, and thank you guys for all the testing that you guys have volunteered for and all of the feedback that you guys are giving me, because it's definitely been pretty helpful just in making sure that it actually works before we actually go ahead and try to release it to everyone. So I think it's something really important to do. So let's just test it out on this little stencil here. Get rid of that layer, and all of my little icons have disappeared in Photoshop. What a great piece of software. But anyway, let's see if we can make do without them. And hopefully I can figure out a way to see the comments. How did I do it last time? YouTube control panel. I'm live streaming, but I can't see my actual live stream, which is weird. Hang on. Let me just refresh everything for a second here before we get into the nitty-gritty and make sure things are actually working and I'm not just talking to myself again. One second, guys. Let's just sort this out quickly. There we go, I can see it. I am live. Alright. Let me just get everything up so I can see the comments if there are any. Hey, now I can see the comments. Guys. Jeremy. Let's just sort this out quickly. Hey, how's it going? How are you going? Alright, let's get started. I am live. Now everything's working. Alright, so let's bring in the... Oh, hang on. So I was actually gonna isolate an area of the image I want to paste. Hey, now I can see the comments. Jeremy. Hey, how's it going? How are you going? Alright, let's get started. And then now everything's working. Our plugin. So let's bring in hopefully things in the right version. Hang on. So I was actually gonna isolate an area of the image I want to paste. Hey, now I can see the comments. Jeremy. Hey, how's it going? How are you going? Okay, here we go. Alright, as we can see, it's working and we've got everything set on. So let's bring in... Alright, let's switch off the bridging for now. Let's go through all the other things first. And maybe reset. Let's start right at the beginning. How's it going? Reset the options. Okay, here we go. So this is what you'll see when you first bring it in and when you first load it up. Alright, let's switch off the bridging for now. Let's go through all the other things first. And the first adjustment that we made in this version, which is version 2, I actually released 2 beta versions. So when I released the video, I had one version that was ready to go, which I shared with all of you guys, and that was sort of the initial version, which was a bit ambitious, I would admit, especially with the bridging. Like, the way I had the bridging calculated was it would go around other islands, but it took way too long to calculate the bridges, and I think a lot of people had issues with it. And some people even said they went back to the first version, because it just wasn't working that well, I would admit. So what I did after that was I calculated was it would go around the days of work, and I reworked it entirely from scratch, so the bridging would be much faster. Like, the goal was to try and get it under 5 seconds, and even on my machine, which just was not that great, it's actually pretty old, so I was hoping that at least if it works on my machine, then it'll work on all of yours. And I reworked it entirely from scratch, so the bridging would be much faster. Like, the goal was to try and I think I've gotten to that point where it's super quick. Even on my machine yesterday to make sure you guys are all aware of the version 2 that I've created, at least if it works on my machine, and that's the one that I'm most likely going to release. Rework it still needs a little bit more work. So, and the other thing I think I've gotten to the point where it's also in the first version was the preset for every number of versions. So as you slide through these, all of them look good. That's the one that I'm. And you don't have to actually go in and adjust these layers individually like you did with the previous version to get it to look okay. I think I've gotten to what they are here for now is just a little bit of fine tuning. Some images might be darker, some images might be lighter, and you might just have to go in there and fine tune them a little bit. And you don't have to actually go in and adjust these and echo on my body like you did with the previous version to get it to look okay. I think I've got more than one of those here for now is just a little bit of fine tuning. Some images might be darker, some images might be lighter, and you might just have to go in there and fine tune them a little bit. And you don't have to actually go in and adjust these and echo on my body like you did. And the other thing I think I've got more than one of those here for now is just a little bit of fine tuning. Some images might be darker, some images might be lighter, and you might just have to go in there. Okay, hopefully that's a little bit better now and I've solved that. Okay. So yeah, what these little layer sliders here are here for now is just a little bit of fine tuning. So some images might be lighter, some images might be darker, and you might have to go in there and fine tune it a bit. Edge detail, let's turn that up a little bit to get my computer working a little bit harder and show exactly how well these bridges work. Corner markers, that's the same as before. Shouldn't be too much of an adjustment there. One thing that we did miss out in the first version. Thank you. Audio is looking good. Great. And then, yeah, the one thing we missed in the first version was the marker scale. So if an image came in really small, then the markers would look too big, and if the image was really big that you were trying to stencilize, then the markers would look too small. So now you can just fine tune it to the size that you wanted to, and that's something that should have been there, but we just missed it in the first version. And now the enable bridging. So this is the version 2 that I've released, and it's the much faster version. There is still one little bug which I couldn't resolve, and that is when you click on this box, the initial click will switch it on, but then when you switch it off, the tick will still be there. You have to click it again to really switch it off, and then it's like a 3-click. I couldn't figure out why it's doing that. It's just one of those little quirks I couldn't figure out. So let's make these bridges a little bigger to 10 pixels, and minimum island size 50, that should be pretty good. Bridge inner islands, leave that on and hit OK, and let's see how well this does it. I didn't check the size of the image, so it might have been a bit too small. But if we go through these layers, we should see bridges in all the right areas. Alright, so black layer, we got 3 bridges to this little island. And the way I've sort of got it working is, if an island is of a certain size, I wanted to create 3 bridges like I usually do by hand. Like I always try to create more than 1 bridge to make it a bit stronger. So that's something that this code does pretty well. We missed a few areas here, and I think that's because I probably had my threshold set too high, so I missed the smaller ones. And I think this image might have been too small too. So we'll go back and fix that. But it has got these little areas, which is bridging pretty well. These ones look okay. And these ones look pretty good. So this one is still missed a few. And the other layers are not too bad either. Alright, let's Control Z all that, go back to the beginning, and start by doing it properly by checking the size of the image. So this image isn't too bad. It's about 1000. Let's make it a bit bigger so it'll be a bit easier to work with. Okay, show our stencils again. Alright, now that the image is much bigger, you're getting a lot more bridges going everywhere. So let's simplify this a bit. No, wrong direction. This way. And let's see how the bridges work on a high detail image. So now that the image is much bigger, it's actually creating bridges to all the tiny little areas as well. Okay. And hopefully this time round we do not miss any islands at all. Let's check how this works. They did look a bit on the thin side, but there were a lot of bridges, so I'm interested to see what they look like. Okay, and the purpose of this live testing session is to see how well it's working, because I haven't had much of an opportunity to test myself. Alright, so it is still missing a few islands. Okay, this layer looks alright, but it's still missing those ones. So I think what's happening is it is bridging to most of the lower islands, and then it's missing a few because those islands are almost within other islands, not quite. Alright. So it's still missing a few, I think. So it needs a bit more work. But in the upper layers, I would say this layer is pretty much perfect. It's got all of the bridges going to the right spots. And, you know, I think this is a really good starting point for any beginner who doesn't know anything about bridging. You know, it sort of just gives them a starting point, and even if it doesn't create all the bridges, it really should. I think I need to go work on the code a little bit more, because it's creating bridges into the right sort of islands in the right spots, so it's calculating the shortest path, which is good. Another thing it's doing here, which I want to fix, is it's got multiple bridges going back to the same point. That is a real big no-no. I never do that when I create bridges by hand, so that needs to be fixed. And it's missing a few over here. So I need to go back and figure out why that's happening. Alright, let's try another image. So this one was a fail. And hopefully you guys are seeing similar results to this. So the feedback I did get from people is that the new version 2, was much faster and it was working really well on their computers, but no one really mentioned how well it was working, so that's why I'm doing it myself in this live stream. Let's get another image. Images, let's try this one. Alright, we'll do one more and then I'll call it quits for this testing session. So subject, is that going to work? Yep. Alright, show stencils. So my plan was to try and release this plugin by the end of this month, but it looks like I might have a little bit more work to do before I get to that point. Alright, adjust the edge detail, go to 8 layers, usually looks pretty good. And as you can see, as I'm adjusting all of these little details, the bridges are recalculating and it's super fast. So that's one thing I'm really happy with. But if it needs a bit more work getting the bridges to all of the islands, then that's hopefully not too much of an issue. The main thing is it's actually working, because refining it is not too hard. Getting it working the right way I wanted to was the main sort of struggle. Let's get a bit more white in there. And then let's adjust our bridge width. Oh, bridge width looks alright. Let's adjust our minimum island so it's even lower and see how that calculates the bridges. Alright, let's try with this one. Okay, so on the black layer, it's done it perfectly. It's created 3 sort of bridges in different areas on opposite ends, so this stencil will be pretty strong because you got one bridge here, one bridge there, and one bridge there. So for a really big island, you got 3 bridges in opposite areas, creating a really strong sort of stencil there. One to the button, that's fine. Not ideal, but it'll work. And then if we go to the next layer, it's created a bridge to all the main details, so the nostrils, the eyes, that's working really well. And then the layer above that, that's looking good too. I really like the way it's created bridges to opposite ends of the mouth, and you know, I think that's alright. I don't really like the way it's created bridges to these nostril areas now, because that's going to be a bit floppy, so you might need to add another one through the middle here. That's something you could pretty easily do by hand. This one is looking pretty good too. You got bridges to all the little islands, and I'd say this is pretty good, except, and it's missed all these tiny areas, which to be honest I don't really want anyway. And then another perfect layer, I'd say. This is ready to cut as well. I'm pretty happy with what I'm seeing here. And this one's also ideal. No bridges here, which it doesn't need them. And that one too. So this is interesting because on this image, it's working really well, almost perfectly in creating bridges in all the right areas. But it didn't do it on the previous layer. Hang on. So that's really interesting. I'm gonna have to query that. Maybe I just need to test a whole lot more images to see what sort of results it's creating, because this one is ideal. The only thing you'd have to do for this stencil is create a base layer, which you could either choose the black or the darkest gray, and then you could just cut out all the layers above that, export them, cut them, and paint them, and you'd end up with almost a perfect stencil art with this one. However, with the shining, clearly it missed quite a lot of islands, and I am wondering why. So clearly I have a little bit more homework to do to figure that out. I'm wondering whether it's because this image has the background within it and it's not like an isolated portrait like this one is. Yes, let's test on some more images. More testing is needed. So let's try something like this, just a regular portrait, I'd say. Fairly low res, but should give us some interesting results. So select subject. Plugins, we could plug in. Alright, let's see what this stencil gives us. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, that took about 5 seconds, I'd say, which is the ideal sort of calculating time for all the bridges. I would not want it to be any longer than that, because the first one in some cases took minutes, and depending on how good your computer was, some guys told me they were sitting there for up to 10 minutes just waiting and still no result, which was kind of horrible. And that's why I went back to the drawing board and started from scratch. And I think the performance of this one is really good, but if it needs a little bit more refinement, like capturing all the little islands, then that's fine. I don't think that'll be too much of an issue. Okay, so we're getting bridges to all the little islands, so this is a fairly big image. So let's adjust the minimum island size to something bigger, like 100. So the bridges don't go too crazy. One, two, three, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, it's taken a fair while to calculate. Why is it creating more bridges? Surely if the minimum island okay, there we go. Alright, that took a good 30 seconds actually. I guess with such a realistic image and a high detail set like this, it would take much longer. Guess that makes sense. And let's see if this one has captured all the little islands. Alright, so the black layer is looking pretty good, I'd say. Like the main island already has like a big bridge out here, so you know, there wouldn't be too much of an issue with that. And then it's captured all these little stragglers in the hair, which are always a pain in the butt. As soon as an image has a lot of hair in it, I always sort of struggle a bit with that. Alright, this one's worked really well. So it's definitely created a bridge to all the islands, got both nostrils here. I probably want to add a couple of extra islands to this, in addition to the ones the auto bridge makers created, just to make this a bit stronger. Even maybe one, where's my eraser? I select this layer. I'd probably want one through here maybe, one through there, possibly even one through there, and then I'd say that's pretty good. This layer's looking pretty good as well, even better than the previous one. The only thing I'd say is maybe making the bridges a bit thicker. The one above, this is great. This is good. That's great. That's good. And this one doesn't even need bridges. So this one has worked really well as well. So I think the case is, if you set your layers nicely to, you know, get the right contrast, it should calculate the right bridges. But then why didn't this one manage to capture all the islands? That's left me a little bit puzzled. I'm definitely going to test a little bit more before I release it, because I think it's 90% of the way there. And if it can create the bridges like it has on this one and this one for 90% of the images, I think, you know, it's really good. And the whole intention of this was to create a solution for beginners who know nothing about bridging, and just give them a stepping stone into understanding how bridges work and where to put them, because I think this plugin does a pretty good job of putting them in the right spot. But as you can see, you know, there's always some you can improve on. You can also hide them a little bit better. That's something the bridge plugin doesn't do at all, because it just takes too much computing power. And creating plugins within Photoshop, you're limited to how much they allow you to have. And that's the reason why the first version was so incredibly slow. And then I had to basically, you know, go back to the drawing board and start over. But I'm happy to say it's about 90% of the way there, and with a couple more tweaks, I would say hopefully by the end of the month this will be ready to release, and hopefully you guys are getting the same results at home. If you're not, please message me, let me know if there's something else I need to fix. And I think that'll be it for this live stream. I'm gonna go back to working on that other awesome video I'm working on with some hand cut stencils. Super simple, going back to basics. And yeah, I'll see you guys in the next one. Catch you then.